Have you sensed a deep, unexplainable tension beneath the surface of your life, or witnessed it in the divine masculine you love? Outwardly, everything may appear controlled, functional, even successful. Yet inside, there is restlessness, a tightening in the chest, a pressure that distractions no longer dissolve. The masculine soul reaches a moment when noise can no longer drown out the silence within. In the middle of routine, responsibility, and expectation, a question begins to surface, quiet at first, then relentless. What do I truly want? This is not confusion of the mind, but awakening of the soul. And for many on the twin flame path, this question arrives as both a disturbance and a summons. In today's video, we will gently but clearly unpack what is truly happening when this question arises inside the divine masculine. We will help you understand why desire intensifies rather than fades, why control begins to crack, and why the familiar masks of indifference no longer hold. This is not about surface attraction or fleeting emotion. It is about the deeper psychology of masculine awakening, how suppressed longing transforms into conscious recognition, and how desire becomes a messenger rather than a threat. Together, we will explore the 5 core desires that awaken within the divine masculine as he steps closer to soul truth and twin flame remembrance. By the end of this video, you will no longer interpret masculine desire as confusion, avoidance, or instability. You will recognize it as a signal of alignment, a necessary confrontation with authenticity. Whether you are the divine masculine experiencing this inner storm, or the divine feminine witnessing it from across the bond, this understanding will bring clarity, compassion, and grounding. This video will shift the way you perceive longing, silence, and hesitation, revealing them not as resistance, but as preparation. Stay with us through the entire message, because what unfolds here is not just insight. It is a reframing that allows the soul to breathe, choose, and finally move forward in truth. Number 1. Emotional safety and the courage to be seen. The divine masculine lies awake in the quiet hours of the night, when the world has finally gone still and there is nowhere left to run from himself. The silence presses in, not as peace, but as an invitation. His thoughts circle relentlessly, touching places he has avoided during the day. In the darkness, he becomes aware of a heaviness in his chest, a tightening in his throat, a nameless ache that refuses to be explained away. What stirs within him is not a hunger for touch, not a search for romance, and not a pursuit of pleasure. What rises instead is something far more fundamental and far more vulnerable. He is craving safety. For much of his life, he has been the strong one, the protector, the provider, the pillar others lean on when things begin to shake. He has learned to hold himself together so well that no one questions whether he needs holding at all. Strength became his identity, composure his armor, endurance his unspoken promise to the world. Yet beneath that disciplined exterior lives a tenderness few have ever seen. There is a wounded softness there, not broken but guarded, shaped by years of carrying responsibility without permission to rest. This part of him does not want to be admired. It wants to exhale. It wants to lay its burden down without fear of being judged, diminished, or misunderstood. As his soul begins to awaken, emotional safety becomes his first true desire, not as an abstract idea, but as a lived experience. A sacred inner space where the armor can finally loosen, where vulnerability is not punished or corrected, and where his heart can speak without being analyzed or dismissed. Stoicism begins to dissolve, not because he is becoming weaker, but because he is becoming more honest. With this awakening comes a subtle but undeniable shift. The need to be seen without judgment rises quietly within him. He finds himself drawn toward quiet instead of noise, depth instead of distraction, stillness instead of performance. The world that once rewarded constant motion and emotional restraint no longer satisfies him in the same way. He begins to open small windows into his inner world. Nothing dramatic, nothing performative. A shared fear here, an unguarded thought there. Moments of silent closeness where words are unnecessary and presence becomes enough. These gestures may seem small, but they carry profound meaning. They signal a readiness that cannot be rushed or forced. This longing for safety is not separate from love. It is the foundation of it. Before love can merge, before union can take form, the heart must feel safe enough to open without bracing for impact. For the divine feminine, this moment becomes a quiet initiation, not to fix what is revealed, not to rescue what appears fragile, but to hold space with steadiness and respect, to remain grounded while witnessing vulnerability, to allow him to be seen as he is, without trying to reshape him into something easier to understand. In this shared stillness, something sacred unfolds. Emotional safety becomes the bridge between solitude and union, between endurance and intimacy. And through that bridge, the courage to be seen finally finds its way home. Before we move into the next layer of this journey, take a moment to pause with what has just been revealed. Emotional safety is not a concept to rush past. It is something to feel, to recognize within yourself, and to honor without judgment. If these words resonated with you, allow yourself to acknowledge it. Gently press the like button to support this message, and if you feel called, leave a comment sharing what stood out for you or how this theme shows up in your own life. Or simply type, "I choose emotional safety" in the comments as a quiet affirmation. Your presence here matters, and this reflection creates the foundation for what comes next. Number 2, emotional intimacy and the hunger beyond touch. He stands beside a silent lake beneath a sky scattered with stars, the world hushed around him. He is alone, yet he does not feel lonely. There is a quiet fullness in the stillness, and at the same time, an ache begins to open within his chest. It is not the sharp pain of loss, nor the restless craving of desire. It is a deeper void, one untouched by distraction, ambition, or noise. In this moment, he understands with sudden clarity that what he longs for cannot be reached through touch alone. What he seeks is not physical connection, not chemistry, not the fleeting comfort of closeness. What he hungers for is emotional intimacy, a soul-level meeting that sees beyond the roles he plays and the armor he has learned to wear. He desires a presence that recognizes him without interrogation, that understands him without explanation. A connection that speaks directly to the places within him where words fail and defenses dissolve. Before his awakening, he chased what was available rather than what was true. He settled for surface connections, conversations that skimmed the edges of meaning, encounters that filled time but never touched the heart. There were smiles without sincerity, exchanges without depth, and moments that ended without leaving an imprint. These experiences distracted him from the emptiness, but they never healed it. Now, something within him has shifted. He no longer seeks stimulation. He seeks resonance. He craves presence that can sit with him in silence without discomfort, understanding that does not rush to fix or define. He longs to be met where he truly is, not where he performs. This new desire reveals itself subtly, not through grand declarations, but through deep questions that linger in the air, through long pauses that feel sacred rather than awkward, through intentional gestures that carry meaning far beyond their form. A song shared at the right moment, a gaze held just long enough to feel seen, a moment of stillness where nothing needs to be said. These are not simple gestures, they are transmissions. They carry emotional truth, signaling openness, safety, and readiness. Through them, the divine masculine communicates what his voice cannot yet fully express, a willingness to be known. This hunger for emotional intimacy is a sign of preparation for union. True union does not require perfection, nor constant intensity. It requires transparency. It asks for the courage to allow another to witness the unguarded self, the tender places that were once hidden for survival. Emotional intimacy becomes the bridge, because without it, union remains an idea rather than a lived reality. For the divine feminine, this level of intimacy can feel both exhilarating and unsettling. It mirrors her own vulnerability back to her, inviting her into the same depth she has learned to hold. The invitation here is not to grasp, not to rush, not to demand outcomes. It is to meet depth without attachment, to share without forcing direction, and to trust the language of silence. Because in that silence, something honest is finally allowed to speak. Imagine a quiet evening where nothing extraordinary is planned. Two people sit across from each other, not to impress, not to entertain, but simply to be present. The room is softly lit, and conversation moves slowly, without urgency. At some point, words fade, not because there is nothing left to say, but because something deeper has taken their place. One of them exhales, shoulders dropping, as if a long-held tension has finally been released. The other notices, not with analysis, but with care. There is no fixing, no questioning, no need to fill the space. In that shared silence, a truth is exchanged without being spoken. You are safe here, exactly as you are. This is emotional intimacy in its pure form. No touch is required, no promises are made, yet both leave changed. They feel more seen, more real, more grounded in themselves. The connection does not cling or demand continuation. It simply lingers as a quiet confirmation that genuine closeness is possible when presence replaces performance and understanding replaces expectation. Number 3. Spiritual connection and the call across lifetimes. He stands beneath the vast canopy of stars, arms open as if receiving something unseen, his heart lifted toward a knowing he cannot explain. In this quiet openness, a force moves within him, subtle yet undeniable. It is stronger than logic, stronger than memory, stronger than reason. It does not rush, and it does not shout. It simply pulls. This is not a desire for touch, nor a craving for closeness in the physical sense. What stirs inside him is older than the body. It is a yearning beyond time, a recognition that rises from the soul itself. Something within him remembers who he is, and in that remembering, it remembers you. He feels you even when you are not present, not as imagination, not as fantasy, but as a steady inner resonance. Your essence reaches him across distance, across silence, across the illusion of separation. The connection does not require proof. It simply exists, alive and undeniable. As the spiritual connection awakens, recognition returns. This is not the first time his soul has known yours. There is a familiarity that cannot be traced to this lifetime alone, a sense of continuity that bypasses logic. Before awakening, attraction tried to mask this longing, translating it into surface desire. But now the veil has lifted. The soul speaks clearly, and it cannot be mistaken. He begins to speak of destiny, of soul bonds, of an inexplicable knowing that you have always been part of his story. His words may falter, but the truth behind them is firm. He does not feel as though he is discovering something new. He feels as though he is remembering something ancient. Synchronicities begin to gather around him. Dreams intensify, vivid and symbolic. Numbers repeat with quiet insistence. Moments align too precisely to dismiss. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations, gentle signals that his inner experience is reflected by the larger order of things. What he longs for now is not conquest or possession, but energetic merging. Eye contact that dissolves boundaries, shared breath that synchronizes rhythm, silent presence that speaks more than words ever could. In these moments, the soul feels seen, met, and recognized without explanation. This longing signals readiness, readiness to surrender illusion, readiness to love beyond fear, readiness to reunite beyond ego. He is no longer seeking to control the experience or define it through expectation. He is allowing himself to be moved by something greater than identity. For the divine feminine, this intensity can feel destabilizing. It tests grounding. It asks for discernment. The lesson here is not withdrawal but anchoring, not clinging but presence, not obsession but trust. To remain rooted while the soul remembers is the sacred balance that allows this connection to unfold without distortion. Number 4. Stability and the desire to build a home. He stands in an empty room. The walls are bare, untouched by color or memory, and the silence feels heavier than he expected. Yet within that quiet, something new begins to form. For the first time, he does not feel the urge to escape or move on. Instead, he feels the unmistakable pull toward roots. This is not a longing to be free from love, but a desire to be free within it. Freedom no longer means distance or detachment. It means safety, It means knowing that love has a place to land, a structure strong enough to hold it through time. Stability awakens in him as a sacred desire, not as control, not as rigidity, and not as limitation, but as foundation. He begins to understand that love, to endure, must be grounded. Passion alone is not enough. Connection alone is not enough. There must be something solid beneath them, something steady that allows love to breathe without fear of collapse. He wants to build now, to provide, to create a life that can support the depth of what he feels. This desire is not born from obligation or expectation, but from devotion. He is no longer asking whether love is real. He is asking how to make it livable. This shift appears quietly, almost practically. He thinks about planning. His focus turns toward finances, toward routine, toward structure. He begins to imagine days, not just moments. Futures, not just feelings. Not because he fears love, but because he wants it to last. Because he understands that what is sacred deserves care, intention, and responsibility. Stability, for him, is no longer purely material. It is emotional, his ability to remain present rather than disappear under pressure. It is spiritual, his willingness to align his actions with his values. It is energetic, the steadiness of his nervous system when intimacy deepens. True stability becomes the container where love is no longer fragile, where it can grow without constant testing. For the divine feminine, this phase requires patience and trust. His process may look slow, methodical, or unromantic at times, but it is deeply meaningful. The invitation is not to rush him, nor to abandon herself while waiting. She is asked to remain anchored in her own life, her own purpose, her own rhythm. Union matures through grounded presence, through two individuals standing firmly in themselves, choosing to build rather than escape, choosing continuity over intensity alone. This is where love stops floating and begins to take shape. This is where connection becomes a home. If you have made it this far, take a moment to pause and breathe. What you have just witnessed is not a story about someone else. It is a mirror of a process many souls are quietly living right now. Stability, spiritual connection, and the desire to build something real do not arise randomly. They surface when the heart is ready to stop running and start choosing presence. Let this land gently. Reflect on where you are being asked to root more deeply in your own life, where love is inviting you to become steady rather than guarded. If this resonates with your journey, share your story in the comments so others know they are not alone. Or, if words feel unnecessary, simply type, "I choose grounded love," as an affirmation. By naming it, you anchor it. By witnessing each other, we grow together. Number 5. Unconditional love and the surrender of masks. He stands before his own reflection, not as a performance, not as a role to be upheld, but as a man finally willing to see what has always lived beneath the surface. The masks he once relied on begin to loosen. The walls that protected him start to soften. In this quiet confrontation with himself, truth does not arrive dramatically. It rises gently, undeniably, from within. What he wants now is not applause, not approval, not reassurance earned through effort or achievement. What he longs for is unconditional love, a presence that does not require explanation, a connection that does not demand perfection, a love that stays when the armor is set down and the human heart is revealed. Before awakening, love felt like something to be negotiated. It was earned through strength, consistency, success, or usefulness. Affection followed rules. Acceptance depended on performance. To be loved meant to be impressive, reliable, or unshakable. Vulnerability felt dangerous because it threatened belonging. But awakening changes the architecture of desire. He no longer wants to be admired. He wants to be received. He longs to be accepted in his raw humanity, with his doubts, fears, contradictions, and unfinished healing, not as an ideal, but as a living, breathing soul. This longing does not always express itself clearly. Sometimes it emerges through testing, through emotional withdrawal, through hesitant confessions, or silence heavy with meaning. Sometimes it appears as an unspoken question hovering beneath his actions. Do you still love me when I am not strong, when I am uncertain, when I do not know how to lead or protect or provide. This is not manipulation. It is fear asking for reassurance. It is the wounded masculine checking whether love will disappear when the mask falls, whether connection can survive honesty, whether he is worthy of love without proving himself. Unconditional love becomes the final threshold before union, because true union cannot be built on achievement, performance, or self-sacrifice. It requires worthiness that exists before effort. It asks both souls to meet without disguises, without contracts, without fear of being exposed. For the divine feminine, this stage brings a sacred challenge: to offer love without losing herself, to hold compassion without dissolving boundaries, to witness vulnerability without rescuing or overgiving. Her role is not to fix or save, but to remain grounded, present, and sovereign. Self-love remains the anchor for both, because unconditional love does not mean self-abandonment. It means choosing truth over illusion, presence over performance, and connection that honors both souls equally. When the masks fall on both sides, love is no longer something to earn. It becomes something to inhabit. Beautiful souls, what you have heard throughout this journey is not a list of random desires, nor a set of ideals to strive for or demand from another. These longings arise only when the soul is awakening to its own truth. Emotional safety, emotional intimacy, spiritual connection, inner stability, and unconditional love are not stages of seduction or strategies of attachment. They are signals. They are reminders. They are the language of a soul remembering what real union actually requires. Union is never born from pursuit. It does not emerge from effort, pressure, or longing that seeks to fill an inner lack. True union unfolds when two souls have done the quiet, unseen work of returning to themselves. When safety no longer needs to be negotiated, intimacy no longer needs to be proved, and love no longer needs to be earned, union becomes inevitable. Not because someone chased it into being, but because both souls became ready to hold it. From a psychological perspective, this is integration. From a spiritual perspective, it is remembrance. When the nervous system feels safe, when the heart feels seen, and when the soul feels recognized beyond roles and masks, love shifts from desire into destiny. What once felt like longing transforms into alignment. What once felt like waiting transforms into arrival. And this is the invitation you carry forward from this message. Do not ask when union will come. Ask instead who you are becoming. Do not measure love by intensity or absence. Measure it by truth, by steadiness, by the quiet knowing that you no longer abandon yourself to be chosen. When that inner coherence is present, union no longer needs to be pursued. It reveals itself naturally, gently, and without force. Before you leave, I invite you to anchor this truth by participating. In the comments, write this exact quote as a declaration of remembrance. I no longer chase love. I become the truth that allows union to find me. If this message resonated with your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who may be walking this path quietly, and continue the journey by watching the video below. Each message is another step back into alignment, another layer of remembering who you truly are. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening with an open heart. Until next time, stay anchored in love, stay rooted in truth, and remember, union is not a destination you reach. It is a remembering already written within you, and yes, written in the stars.